to Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition for the Playbook for Performance podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Corden, and my mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. So, if you are just joining us here on the podcast, know that this podcast is also out with some slides out on our YouTube channel. And that's another great way to consume it and see what I'm talking about at the same time as I'm sharing it with you. So we're in the middle of our 20-week challenge. This whole 20-week challenge is about building your resilience so that you bend instead of break when facing adversity and tough times. And I think we've got some tough times well on the way for a lot of people. Layoffs are happening in the tech sector and people are struggling a bit. We are also struggling with inflation and our recession. And so we really want to build our resilience so that we don't crumble with all of these challenges. So last week, we really talked about being problem-free, having systems to do so, and how the solution is integrity plus boundaries plus standards. And you can catch that on our YouTube channel or your previous podcast. This week, we're really talking about reorienting around your values. And this is level 3 of this 20-week challenge because we're really getting into how we operate. So we started off with the what. The what is sort of the demographics, the packaging of a person. And then we got into the who. The who was really like, what are you about? What are you made of, etc. And now we're talking about how you can make all of these things work for you. And our goal is really to have the who and the how match the what. So who you are inside, how you run your life matches what people see on the outside and that they're not different. So let's get into reorienting around your values. So when do I suggest this lesson? Because remember, of this 20-week challenge, you can take these lessons in any order you wish. They're not sequential. So if you're just joining us for the first time today, you can finish out the rest of the 20 weeks and then go back and do week 1. There is a theme sheet that you can get in the show notes or just send us an email. We'll get that off to you. That may help you organize and set some goals around this, but not particularly necessary, just helpful. So when do I suggest this lesson? If you're feeling really stretched thin because you're spreading yourself out like peanut butter rather than being really concentrated. And so when we do that, we might feel like, I hate to say it this way, you're kind of half-assing a whole bunch of stuff rather than like, hey, I'm going to do my very best at these very few things. So I'm really concentrated and I'm powerful and I'm passionate, right? That's the goal, that we show up and we're like, hey, I'm really into this thing. So if you're not feeling a whole lot of passion about it, you may have outgrown it. Could be that, it was just a temporary interest. It wasn't enough for you. Could be that, you've outgrown it. You're ready to master something else, or it met a need at a time in your life when you did need that, but you're ready to move on. The other time that you might feel this is when your community is no longer a fit. You might feel like, hey, I'm doing all this personal development and I'm not wasting time and I'm not hanging out at happy hour all the time and stuff like that. And you may feel like, I'm ready to reorient around some of these concepts and ideas that are so important to me right now. And that's a good thing. Doesn't mean that you don't love your happy hour friends. Just might mean that you do it a lot less frequently, or you invite them to be in your book group or something else. So, some key points. This is really worth spending some time on, because the more that you get this lesson right, the more that you are funneling how you spend your time in the future about stuff that's super important to you. So I shared this in a previous lesson, but years and years ago, I took a course called Voluntary Simplicity based on the work by Dwayne Elgin. And one of my colleagues in my class was this guy that was super into biking. super into biking. Like he had, I think, 9 bikes or something like that when we started the course. So I was thinking, oh, maybe he's going to get rid of 8. I mean, my simple thought process walking into the course is he's going to get rid of 8 of his bikes. But the more he realized that biking was actually a value, it was a way of life for him. It was his social time. It was his family time. It was his commuting time. It was his exercise, etc. He actually doubled down and bought a couple more. But he did get rid of his canoe, his camping equipment, and stuff like that because they only did that once or twice a year, and it was kind of a so-so experience for his family. So it made sense to double down. And this is what we're talking about in terms of reorienting around your values. Of the things that are really important to you, you're going to double down on those. So if you haven't taken our values lesson yet, the big clue that I have for people is, where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time? So if you showed up to work and the doors were locked and you'd already dropped off your kids at school and all that, and you had a whole day to yourself, how would you spend your time? Are you going to go home and do a bunch of chores that you've been meaning to get to? Are you going to bang on the door at the spa and go, please let me in, I have a free day? Are you going to go shopping? Are you going to go call friends? What are you going to do? That's a great way to think about it. The other analogy I use is you put on your winter coat that you haven't worn for 6 months and you find a $50 bill in your pocket. It's like, ooh, payday. What am I going to spend this money on? Of course, none of us ever think, oh, I lost $50. But this idea of, are you going to buy gifts for someone? Are you going to pay off a bill? Are you going to treat yourself to a nice meal? What will you do with that money? So that's another indication of where your values lie. But do recognize that your goal success really depends on them being attached to a value. If you think back in the past, when there was something you didn't really want to do, but your boss wanted you to do it or your parents wanted you to do it, you were really kind of temporarily complying. As soon as their evil eye was not on you any longer, you probably veered from the path. So do recognize that our true values pull us towards goals. We don't feel pushed. We're like, hey, I'm really excited about doing more of this. Okay? So this is really who you are. It's how you go about your life. It's the fingerprint that you leave on the things that you do. So in a lot of ways, this is your legacy. And if you want to have a legacy, it can't be peanut butter spread. I mean, you could do that. People could go, he was a really nice guy. But they wouldn't have any deep association with you in any particular way, whether it be your humor or your kindness or your cooking or your passion about football or whatever it might be. So think about this in terms of the idea of your legacy. When it comes to, God forbid, our funerals, and people are up there talking about you, what do you want them to say about you? And what are the associations that you want to have with you? Is it kindness? Is it feeding the hungry? Is it helping the homeless? Is it, being an ally? What is important to you? How do you want to be remembered? And then how are you going to double down on that? So do recognize that you can satisfy your needs, your wants, and really strive for the future in this way about your future legacy around this area of values. So what we're basically saying is that if you had, just like in business, we have our 1-year plan, we have quarterly goals, etc. What is your lifetime plan around your values? How does that turn into your 1-year plan in terms of the activities, where you're going to spend your time, where you're going to spend your money, and what is it that you want to accomplish that will satisfy that? So think about those interactions, think about your time. Those things, when people see things about you, they should go, oh my God, that's so you. So I remember a friend from church that I hadn't seen for quite a while. When he saw me get into my convertible red Beetle, he went, that car is so you. And that made me very happy because I adore my car. But I think it's a good reflection of me and my personality, and I like to be spontaneous. I like to have fun. I don't do enough of it, but these are some of the values. So do think about that when it comes to how you're going to invest and what that's going to look like for you. So think about, are there obstacles to you reorienting around your values? Like, do you have responsibilities that are preventing you from doing what you really want to do? And if that's the case, is that an assumption that you have made, or is it truly a responsibility? And if so, maybe it is a value, but you just haven't thought of it that way. So, for example, I work with a lot of men. 95% of my clients are men. They're leaders, they're entrepreneurs. Most of them are wealth advisors in some capacity. And I would think that stewardship of their family finances are a big part of who they are and what they do. And, they may feel like, oh, well, I can't just go live on, a compound in Hawaii because I need to take care of my family. But maybe your family would really appreciate having you around more. And maybe they would really appreciate you spending time with them and enjoying that environment and being a steward of the environment. So I think it's good to express these stories you've been telling yourself that say why you can't pursue reorienting around your values and organizing your life around them, because what you think is the case may not be the truth. So I challenge you to do that. So when it comes to this lesson, we want you to pick your number one value, whether it's community, family, work, savings, whatever it might be. Pick that number one value and start organizing around that. See what you can do in terms of your time and your money, and your goals around that. Once you've established that, then follow up with the remaining values that you've identified. So if you like this lesson, please give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. Follow us on the podcast. Give us 5 stars. Those are all great things. And don't forget, we want you to grow together, grow with your community. So please invite them to follow along. Don't forget, we can provide this to your work group, your community. These are lessons that can be delivered in webinars. They can be delivered in person, but it's really here to build your resilience so that you can face any kind of adversity and still enjoy your life. So until then, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shaunacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.